But I want to talk somewhere higher in the lineup. Second line left wing. We've discussed this a little bit. Everyone has a different opinion on it. If the lines hold from last year, Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusk, X, Zacha, Pastrnak, who takes the X spot on that second line? Who would be your pick as of right now?
I think probably as of right now, you're probably looking at a guy like James van Riemsdyk, and that's one that I actually don't dislike the signing of Van Riemsdyk. And again, he signed for a 1 year, $1 million, so I don't know if you can really be like, I hate this anyway, because for what the price is involved, he's still a guy that even if he's just kind of your net front guy in the power play, I think can be productive on this team. He gives you. I think we mentioned this during Bruins beat. If Nick Ritchie can give you almost 20 goals being just kind of a net front guy, like James van Riemsdyk, like even at his age, I think is probably a better player than Nick Ritchie. So there's a lot to like there. It's just whether or not he best fits at 5-on-5 even strength on that second line spot that you have to imagine with Zacha and Pastrnak is going to be very, a lot of ozone starts, a lot of probably pace they want to play with. So we'll see how exactly Gallic Van Riemsdyk fits into that mix, but he's probably the early favorite in that regard. Again, I think it's probably your line's looking a little bit better. It's kind of like with someone like Charlie Coyle, right? Where if he's your 3C, that's great. If you push him a little bit higher up, you're like, he can do the job, but is that where he's best utilized? Like ideally, it's like, Van Riemsdyk, Coyle, and like Geeky or something like that as your third line. And then you have something it's a big line, that has some higher upside. But for another guy to step into that spot, you're either looking at a situation where, is a guy like Georgi Merkulov making a really sustained push, and he's a guy that as an offensively gifted young player can land in that top 6 spot.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed.
Could be something, too, where it's someone at right wing makes a push and it bumps like DeBrusk back to left wing on the second line. Like it could be, I don't know, if Fabian Lysell fights for a spot and he starts the year on the top line, the right wing or what have you. Like I think it's looking more like if anyone's going to bump in Riemsdyk, it's going to be a shift due to younger players making a sustained push. Now, again, you would think that if it's someone who is offensively gifted like a Lysell or Merkulov, still don't want to just throw them into the fire and like the top line, what have you. But again, if you could make 2 different arguments, would you rather let them start off on the third line and work their way in, or would you rather kind of give them a lift early on? I think Anders Bjork, when he started playing, started with Marchand and Bergeron. I think that was kind of what this is. So maybe that's a bet. If Bergeron's back and it's Marchand, Bergeron, Lysell, or some other player like that, maybe that's a good way to get a guy kind of going and getting confident at the next level. So I think right now it's Van Riemsdyk. And again, I think he can be solid into what his role is, but be interesting to see if a younger player can kind of make that push and shift a little bit further down the lineup. But time will tell of how they look in the preseason.
But I like the idea of Marchand, Bergeron, Lysell if he's ready, right? And I think those are 2 guys you'd like if you had any 2 guys on the roster mentor Fabian Lysell. It's those 2, and I think that's a good way to go. But I don't think they'll start the year out like that. Maybe they do, but I think realistically, as where things stand now, it's Van Riemsdyk, and I think the numbers have decreased a little bit. I know he's on kind of a bad Philly team. He's obviously older, but I think he's a guy that somewhat stable. There's going to be some production, at least in the net front. I would imagine playing with Zacha and Pastrnak, you're getting some of that those residual points, some secondary assists, a tap in net front goal, things like that. The question is, can you produce for those 2 guys? The other thing I think easily could happen, let's say that doesn't work out or they want to go a different direction. The obvious other direction is you go Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak, and then you'd have, DeBrusk, Zacha, and maybe like Coyle, right? And then you have Geeky be your second line or your third line center, and you kind of work from there. Again, they're not going to be as deep as they were last year. I think that's the one thing. Like we talked about last year's team, there were a lot of luxuries. Taylor Hall in the third line, Zacha being a second and third line, like lots of options there. You don't have that this year. But again, as you said, younger guy like Lysell pushes or Merkulov, which I'm fascinated to see at camp, to see like where the progress is there, if he's ready for that jump to the pro level. But I mean, again, they're not as deep, but if you can get something out of those guys, I think you're cooking.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed.